there friends, in this channel we're keeping it real. Today is Sunday afternoon. I have been resting up this morning. I've done my workout. I'm not wearing makeup. It's a real Sunday afternoon. And what I wanted to do today is prep some really healthy snacks. I wanted to prep some lunches and I wanted to prep some dinners. So in today's video, we're going to cook up all three things. The prep and getting everything in the oven and in the pot will take me less than an hour. And then I'm going to show you how much food we ended up with. I'm aiming to do a pretty big batch of soup as well so that I can freeze a couple of portions for future dinners. But the first thing that I did before I started filming this morning is I headed out to my veggie patch and picked a couple of things. If you haven't seen my veggie patch update video, I will link that up on the screen for you as well as down in the description box. But I found quite a bit of stuff in my veggie patch, and we've also been super fortunate. Friends and family have given us some beautiful tomatoes, zucchini. I've had a pretty good harvest the last few weeks. My green beans are going absolutely crazy, so I've got a lot of green beans to use up. So without further ado, let's get into cooking up these meals and see how much we can make. Alright, so the three recipes we're doing today are going to have some kind of mix and match ingredients. So let's start over here. This is a new recipe that I'm trying out, which is sort of a protein muffin. So I've got my muffin tin here. I've got some ham. I picked this up on clearance. You'll see that grocery haul in the next video that's coming up on my channel. But I got a little bit of ham, I've got some capsicum, I've got some cottage cheese. We're going to be using some eggs and some of this spring onion. So those muffins we're going to cook up in the oven, and they're going to be kind of snacks and breakfasty things. Here we have the zucchini bake, which I've made on this channel several times. So I've got some frozen spinach here, a huge zucchini that we got from my brother-in-law. We've got some dill and basil. I may use some fresh basil as well, some cheese, some flour, milk, and baking powder. And as you can see, my veggie patch, this is about 1 week worth of green beans, and these containers are humongous. So I'm going to try to use a little bit of green beans in these two dishes here, maybe even in my soup. Anyway, so this is going to be lunches for the week. And you can very easily make this, you can stack it with some tuna. I'm not going to do that today, but you can also make it vegetarian, which is what I'll be doing. And over here we've got my soup stew. I've made this on the channel before. I will link a recipe for you below if you're keen to make this yourself, but it basically is just potato, diced tomatoes. I'm going to be using these beautiful fresh tomatoes that we've gotten from some friends and family, so I'm going to just be cooking them down. I may not need the can of tomatoes. I had some frozen celery hanging out of my freezer needing to be used. This is just 500 grams of beef mince. And some carrots, but you can pretty much put anything you want in this one, to be honest. I'm going to be using beef stock. You can use veggie stock, and this is just an option for the veggie friends out there watching. You can do chickpeas, any kind of bean you want instead of the meat if you prefer. And for seasonings, I'm doing bay leaves, and this is oregano and thyme from my garden, and we're going to be using some salt and pepper as well. Go pretty easy on the salt though if you are using stock or bouillon cubes, because there's usually a fair bit of salt in that. But this is what we're going to be cooking up. It's going to take about an hour-ish, maybe a little bit more, but let's get cooking. So we're starting off by using my new favorite kitchen gadget, which is this Ninja blender. We got this to make smoothies and other things, but it does a really good job on grating and dicing and all sorts of other things. So I've been using that. I'm really loving that. And we are going to get started on the zucchini slice and the protein muffins. They have very similar, well, not very similar, they have a lot of egg in them and somewhat similar overlapping ingredients. So I'm going to get them started here in my bowls, and I'm cracking all these eggs. I used up almost 2 whole packages of eggs, and like I said before, the recipes to these will be linked below. Neither of them are my original creations, but if you do follow the channel, you know that I like to experiment with things and use other ingredients. So I will link the base recipes that I started using below, and then you can obviously modify this as you see fit as well. So first up in this little bowl, I've got the ingredients for the protein muffins, and they call for bacon in the original recipe, but I used this discount ham that I had in my freezer already. I should have put a little bit less salt in because I didn't account for how salty that ham was, but that's okay, these things happen, so not too bad at all. And just using up the spring onion and the other ingredients you would have seen before from my garden and mixing all of this up. Now these protein muffins, and you'll see them later in the video, turned out so good. My husband and I both really like them, and I would 100% make these again. I would probably even up the cottage cheese proportion a little bit and decrease the grated cheese, because I personally really like cottage cheese and I think it's a really budget friendly protein option as well. But I can highly recommend making these. And next up we've got my zucchini slice. I've made this many times here on the channel. I have made it with tuna, I have added ham, I have tried it with all sorts of different things. Again, the base recipe is linked below. Today I made it just pure basic recipe with most of the ingredients that are in the original recipe, and egg as my main protein. But there are so many ways you can vary this recipe up, and we very often have it for lunches. So I'll make a big oven dish which usually makes 6 portions, so 3 lunches for my husband and 3 lunches for me. So it's a really nice one, it's really easy to cook up, and I highly recommend it. Okay, so I've got my muffins in the oven, I've got my zucchini bake in the oven, and it's a right hot mess here. So my best tip, if you're doing a big meal prepping session like I am today, take 2 minutes and tidy up and get everything organized so you can cook your next thing. All right, so I have cut up all of those beautiful tomatoes, and you can see it's absolutely humongous. So before I get started on cooking up my meat, I'm going to cook that up in the Dutch oven just behind me here. But I'm going to start in the other pot. I've just got some olive oil in there, and I'm going to cook these tomatoes down a little bit and see how much we end up with. I mean, you can see how much is here versus what's in a can, so I'm sure this is going to be fine. And the great thing with this soup or stew or whatever you want to call it recipe is it's so easy to adjust however much or little you want to make. Now, this soup recipe, soup, stew, whatever you want to call it, is so simple, and making it with fresh tomatoes like I did this time was next level. So if you have a lot of tomatoes in your garden, please go ahead and give this a try. It was so yummy. And I'm making quite a few portions here, as you would say. Someone has commented in the past that I make a lot of soup, and I do, because when I make soup, I tend to make extra portions and freeze them. So during a busy week, my husband and I can just grab a portion each for dinner, etc. So I will have this recipe linked below, or the base recipe that I've kind of created myself. But it is such a versatile recipe. You don't have to use mince, you can use beans, you can use any kind of vegetarian mince that you like. I haven't actually made it with vegetarian mince, but I have made it with beans instead of meat, which works just fine. And it's such a good way to use up basically any veggies that you have hanging out in your fridge that need to be used up. So this recipe, even if it was a sort of a warmer weather the week I cooked this up, it just turned out so beautiful. The thing as well is when you're adding bay leaves and fresh herbs, etc., you want to make really sure that you fish these out at the end when you have finished cooking it, because bay leaves, they don't taste very good. They're just there to season the soup. So make sure at the end of your cooking that you try and find all those sprigs and fish them out. I also realized I completely forgot to add the frozen celery that I had hanging out, so I chucked that in there as well to make sure that I was using up all the bits and bobs in my pantry that needed to be used. Well, there you go. I am pretty happy with that. I've got lots of beautiful food cooling down here behind me before I put it in the fridge and in the freezer. A few of the things, those little muffins, I started cooking first, so they were done first, so they're already in my fridge, ready for snacks and things for the week. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know down there in the comments if you're going to be cooking up any of these recipes. And like I said earlier, all the recipes will be linked in the description box below. None of these recipes, except for the soup, are mine, but I do highly recommend that you go and give them a go. All of these things were really tasty.